welcome to Lynn's Recipes. Today I'm going to show you how I make my cinnamon rolls. This is not a low-fat recipe, but it's really good for special occasions, for Christmas, for when you have company, or to make to give as a gift to somebody. We are going to make this recipe in 3 sections. We'll do the dough, the topping, and then the icing. And as we do each section, I'll go over the ingredients. To make the dough, these are the ingredients that you're going to need. A half a cup of water, and this needs to be between 110 and 115 degrees for the yeast to activate. You'll need a tablespoon of sugar, 2 packages of 4.5 teaspoons of yeast, a stick of butter or a half a cup, 3/4 a cup of milk that you've warmed, and also this needs to be the same degrees as the water, 110 to 115. You'll need 4.5 cups of all-purpose flour, an egg, a half a cup of granulated sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. The first thing I'm going to do to start this recipe is activate my yeast. And the way we do that is you take your warm water and you sprinkle your yeast over it. And then you put your sugar. And I'm just going to stir it a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just set this aside for a minute. And then when we come back, you'll know that it's activated because it will be all foamy and it'll look like it's grown a little bit in this container. So we'll be back in just a minute. So my yeast is all activated. You can see how it's foamy and how it's kind of grown a little bit in this container. So what I'm going to do now is mix my dough. And I'm going to use my stand mixer with the dough hook. And the first thing I'm going to do is pour my milk in. And then my butter. And then I'm going to pour my yeast mixture in. Okay, so I'm going to lower this down and start mixing. I'm going to do it on low. So now I'm going to put my egg in and gradually add my sugar. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding my flour. And to do this, I'm going to go ahead and lift this up. And I'm going to start off with 2 cups. So I'm just going to measure this in. This is a half cup measure, so I'm going to put 4 in. And I'm also going to add my salt. Lower this back down. And I'm going to start this on slow to keep the flour from flying all over the kitchen. And then I'll turn it up. Okay, I'm going to scrape the sides down a little bit and get all this flour incorporated into the mixture. I'm going to mix for just another second or 2. I'm going to lift this back up one more time, and I'm going to put the rest of my flour in. Again, you want to start off slow and then increase your speed as it becomes all incorporated to keep it from flying all over the kitchen. you can see, this is becoming all incorporated and it's becoming a dough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my mixer on and let it knead it for 5 minutes. Okay, as you can see, our dough has formed a nice ball now. I ended up putting another ½ cup of flour in. And so now what I'm going to do is take it out and put it in a greased bowl here. And then I'm going to spray the top of it and cover it with plastic wrap. And now we're going to set it aside to let it rise probably for about an hour, hour and a half until it's doubled in size. So that's what I'm going to do now. There we go. That's what it's supposed to look like. It's a nice ball. So I'm going to set it in here. I'm just going to spray it so that the plastic wrap doesn't stick to it while it's rising. I'm going to take the plastic wrap, and I like to set mine directly on top of the dough, and that keeps it from forming any kind of hard places. So now I'm just going to set it aside and leave it alone for an hour and a half. Well, an hour, hour and a half. Well, it's got to double in size. I want to show you what goes into the filling of my cinnamon rolls. You'll need about 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon. You'll need 1 1/4 cups of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, and a half to a whole stick of butter. Now, I will tell you, I only use about a half of the stick of butter because I like to spread it on top of the dough, and once the whole dough is spread with the butter, I stop because I don't want too much extra butter on my cinnamon rolls. But that's up to you. If you want extra, you can use the whole stick. But I'm only going to use probably about half. So here's my dough. It's doubled in size, and so now I'm going to roll it out on my counter. It's a clean counter, and so I'm going to take my flour and sprinkle it on my counter to keep it from sticking. I'm going to take my dough and get it out of my bowl. And I'm going to just kind of start spreading it, and then what I'm going to do is sprinkle the top of it with flour. Then I'm going to take my rolling pin and kind of do the same thing with it so it won't stick. Now, the goal is to roll it out into about a 12 by 24 rectangle. So that's what I'm going to start working on doing. And as soon as I get that done, I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so that looks about right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my softened butter and I'm going to start spreading it. What I like to do is just take a little bit at a time, and just with my hands I just like to spread it on the dough. Just try to make it even and get it all over. Okay, so I have my butter spread, and I only actually did use half a stick of butter, and you can see that it's completely covered the top of my dough. So that's up to you. It's your discretion if you want more or not. I personally like it just like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brown sugar and I'm just going to sprinkle it evenly all over my dough. Okay, now I'm going to sprinkle my granulated sugar on top. Take my hand and make sure it's all even. Okay, now I'm just going to sprinkle my cinnamon on, and I'm just going to sprinkle about 2 tablespoons on all the way across the top. Okay, that looks good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to roll. So what you do is you roll the long end, and what we're going to do is we're going to start like this and just kind of roll and tuck it under. You just keep doing that. Okay. almost to the end. So there you have your log. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut it into pieces and we're going to put it in a pan. Now I'm going to use this 9x13 pan, and I've sprayed it with cooking spray. But if you would like to use this as a gift for somebody, a homemade gift, that would be really nice. I've done this before. You can buy these aluminum cake pans. This is a pack of 3 at the grocery store. And just spray them and just fill them up. And you could probably get 2 or 3 pans of these cinnamon rolls out of this batch. And what you could do is just bake it and finish it off, let them completely cool, wrap it in cellophane and tie it with a really pretty bow, and you have a really nice homemade gift for somebody. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to start cutting my cinnamon rolls. I'm going to cut the ends off because they most likely don't have as much of the filling. So then we start in the middle and go like this, just so we can get them even. And then one more time. And there we go. So now I'm ready to put them in my pan. So I'm going to start laying them in there. Okay, so there I have my cinnamon rolls in my pan. So now what we're going to do is we're going to set them aside again and let them double in size before we bake them. So after our cinnamon rolls have doubled in size, we're going to put them in a 350 degree preheated oven for 15 to 20 minutes until they're nice and brown and done. My cinnamon rolls are ready, and this is what they look like out of the oven. So now I'm going to make the icing. So what you need to make the icing is you need 2 cups of confectioner's sugar. You're going to need about a teaspoon of clear butter flavoring. And this comes from the craft store. You usually can't find it at the grocery store. And you'll need some milk. And I'm going to add like a tablespoon at a time until I get the right consistency. So I'm going to start with the flavoring and measure that out. And then I'll put a couple of tablespoons of milk in, and then I'll start stirring, and we'll see if we need more. This is more of an icing versus a glaze that some cinnamon rolls have. I'm going to put some more in. Just stir it until it's smooth. And you don't want it that thin because it will harden up once it's on the cinnamon rolls, and that's the way that we like it. And that looks about right, like that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to take my spoon and I'm just going to start drizzling it over my cinnamon rolls. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now I'll serve some for you on a plate and let you see what they look like. Get one in the middle. And so here we have it. This is my cinnamon roll recipe. I hope you enjoyed it.